How could one not love to be here? Got Susan's beautiful smiling face up here to start the way, and the music, and I'd love being here. So thank you for having me. The title of the talk today is "In Deep Surrender," and we all have our share of surrender without saying for sure, right? There's plenty of things. In fact, when my teacher was asked by a student asked about the word surrender, he said, "Can you tell me about surrender?" And he said, "What else is there? What else is there?" Because when life is presenting something to us, we either have the choice to choose it and flow with it, accept it, or reject it. And when you're flowing with it and you're choosing it, it means that there has to be some sort of surrender that goes along with it. I had the sad, very disheartening news a couple weeks ago, 2 weeks from today actually, that I got word from my cousin. He was telling me about my other cousin Rachel, who her fiance had committed suicide. He was 38 years old, and I didn't know him exceptionally well, but I do know my cousin, and I love her, and I felt so sad and heartbroken for the whole thing. And it was just really, I wasn't sure how to reach out and support. And, what do you say in that kind of situation? But I did reach out to her and I texted her. I said, "If I can support you in any way, please let me know." And I'm happy to do so. And she said, "Can we talk?" And I said, "Yeah, of course." So we called, cried some together. And what I was starting to notice as I let go and I surrendered into the moment, because I know it's easy to get in our stories like, this shouldn't have happened, or, what went wrong and all of that. And it's okay if you feel that way, but for me, I do not. You've all heard me say many, many times what my teacher has said, and that is, there's not one single hair out of place in the universe. It's all unfolding exactly as it needs to unfold. And it's hard to believe that when something as tragic as that happens. But for me, I love living that way because it doesn't give me an opportunity to be a victim to anything. It only says, okay, what's this piece for me? How do I rise up to come back into my heart and be at peace in such a tragic situation? So we went to the service, and my cousin was being really challenged by Jared, who was her fiance. His mom hadn't spoke to Jared in a year, so there was already some strain there. But then Jared's mom was coming after Rachel for the house because they weren't married. Fortunately, her name was on it. Was also coming for all the goods in the house. I mean, she was really just, she wasn't being kind. She was really just, I feel like what she was in pain. She was in such deep pain. And she wanted to blame somebody for that. And I want to say this. It's okay. It's okay. That's where she's at. And it's easy for us to say, oh, that, and come up with, adjectives in our mind about how she is wronging her. But I said to Rachel when I was speaking with her, by the way, I don't even know Jared's mom's name. I always say Jared's mom. But when I was talking to Rachel and she said to me, she said, yeah, she even told me that she thought I was the one who pulled the trigger. And I'm like, oh, goodness, okay. And at first I said, from like I wasn't rooted in who I am, who I truly am. And so I said, well, she's the one that pulled the trigger by creating all this stuff in his head, that this voice that he carried for all these years, that's why he wasn't talking to her, And so I'm like, and then I took a step back and I go, oops, I don't think I really wanted to say that, I didn't want to say that, honestly. And it's okay that it came out because that's where I was. It pulled me back into my egoic self, my person. And it's okay. But then I took a step back and we had a conversation about that. And then I had this awareness. And I said to Rachel, I go, what happened was I realized that the only way she could say that to Rachel is if Rachel was carrying some type of guilt where she was bringing this thought, this belief to her to help bring it to the surface. So I said to Rachel, I go, are you feeling guilty about Jared's death? And she said, yes. She said, I told him that before he had committed suicide, she said, I don't care. And she was carrying that burden with her. And I said, this is why this is happening. Because this is not her picking on you. This is her just having consciousness express itself through her, because this is what was needed to bring to the surface the guilt that she was carrying. Do you everybody see that? It's like she was feeling guilty, and so she needed something to happen in life to bring that guilt to the surface so that it could be healed. So our mind says, oh, she shouldn't say that, and she's this and she's that, but all the while, God is working through all of us, and the whole world is reflecting back to us exactly what we need to see. Now, we can either surrender into that and flow with that, or we can fight against it. I don't know about you. I fought against plenty of it. I still do sometimes, but it doesn't get me anywhere. It really doesn't. It only creates the stress and the suffering in my life. Lately, I just really have been into surrender a lot. And, when I do my talks, I like to, I don't like to give my talks too far ahead of time, because I'm like all of you, there's ebbs and flows of life, and so kind of what's up for me, I like to talk about that because it feels like there's energy and something there. And so what's really been up for me lately is this idea of surrender. And I gave my life over to God a long time ago, and, Christians would say, that it's, they would say, call it being saved. And whether you do it through Jesus or God or Buddha or whatever teacher you have, it's all possible, and it's just really fully giving your life over to God to the best of your ability, right? Because the truth is we still hold on to things. I noticed, let's see, I think it was the last time I was here, I was having some AFib problems with my heart, and it was a lot of surrendering in that moment, because honestly, I woke up feeling so bad, I'm like, maybe I'll die off this whole thing. I don't know. And so in my mind, my mind's wanting to solve this problem. What's wrong with my heart? What do I need to do to move forward? That's where my mind went. But when I stepped back and I said, well, I could either get in my head and try to figure this out, which accomplishes nothing. I don't know if you've noticed that, but when you get in your head, you try to figure it out. It's like contradictory to what you want to happen. What you want to happen is you want to surrender it over to God, get out of your head, and it calls you back to your heart, where something beautiful can present itself to you. But typically, we're taught so much to figure it out. Use your head, man, use your head, And it's like, no, don't use your head. I'm going to tell you, don't use your head. Use your heart. And the answers are always there. No matter what the problem is, God always has a solution, but we have to step out of the way, step our small self out of the way so that our true self can shine through. And that's where Eckhart Tolle says, all creativity happens from the truth of who you are. I'm paraphrasing. That's not exactly what he said, but that's his message, the context behind it. All creativity comes from that deeper place of who you are. So if you're in your head, yeah, the head can come up with some ideas in that, but there's no better idea than really surrendering it over to God and trusting that something greater can come through. So for me, with the whole surrendering process, it's like when I was going through my heart issues, I realized I hadn't quite given everything over to God, because I said, am I ready to die? I had to ask that question. What am I holding on to? What if I'm going to die? So I have said in the past that, all right, Father, I give everything over to you, including my body, my mind, and my life. And in doing that, the first thing that popped up for me was, man, if I'm not setting boundaries and protecting myself, that means that, God can come along and chop my arm off, or I get in a car accident, or, I lose one of my wife or my son. And so the whole idea of really giving it all over to God was just frightening at first, and then there was such freedom with it. As you begin to trust, have deeper trust and faith that God is there for you no matter what, right? So the one thing that popped in my head, though, from going through the heart experience was the one thing I wasn't able to really surrender and let go of was my wife and my son and my puppy dog, too. And so it was a good teaching for me. It was a good teaching for me to see where I'm holding on to something. But really, I would say I'm here today to invite you to surrender over everything that you have, everything that you are, over to God. I'm here to invite you to surrender your money, everything you own. I'm here to ask you, to invite you to surrender over your family. I'm here to invite you to surrender over everything you think you know. I'm here to invite you to surrender over all your opinions and beliefs and self-righteousness. Because if we're truly to come back to who we are, coming back to who we are means coming back to a place of innocence. Jesus said that, to enter the kingdom, you have to have the faith of a child. And to me, the faith of a child is innocent, right? There's innocence there. It's like they haven't come up, collected all these stories and opinions to say this is right, this is wrong. I was driving home. We had a community sing in Ann Arbor yesterday. I was in a very good heart space because it's just very beautiful chanting together and singing songs. And I was driving back, and there was a bad accident up there, and a car was on fire, and I didn't see what happened with the people. Hopefully they're okay. But in any case, it happened right before I got there. And so I'm driving along. I'm in the left lane, which looked like the correct lane to be in. And so now people are starting to merge to the left. And I had this guy in a big truck next to me who decides he wants to wedge his way in, And I was really ticked off, because it's like, can you not just put your flasher on, It's like, that's for me in my head, right? In my mind, I'm saying, in fact, he was coming over, and I'm like, okay, he's basically running me off into the shoulder of the road. He's much bigger than I am, right? So he's running me off the side of the road, so I have to go on the shoulder, and he's obviously aggravated because I won't let him in, right? This is the battle of egos, right? And so any case, so he's forcing me over. So I pull behind him, and I slam on my horn. Yes, I do those kinds of things too. And so I slam on my horn, and he's got his window down because I could see he's got his arm on the car. And I yelled out, I rolled my window down, and I said, can you just use your frickin' flasher, I didn't use the word frickin'. And and I could hear him say, okay, like he acknowledged that, that would have been the nicer thing to do. But, looking at this, who was wrong? Nobody. Nobody was wrong about it. I know the mind wants to say, oh, that guy and this and that, and has plenty of things to say. And we do these things all the time, right? These are because it doesn't match up what our mind thinks we need to be happy. But if you are going after what you think your mind needs to be happy, I hate to tell you this, you're going to fall a little short. You're going to fall a little short because the mind doesn't know what true happiness is. The mind, when it gets what it wants, it'll grasp onto something, say, oh, I like that. Oh, I won the lottery. Awesome, Or, wow, what a shiny new car I got. Whatever it is, the mind will temporarily temporarily enjoy what's going on. But it's not a true joy, because who you are, when you're rooted in who you are, joy is not passing. It's not temporary. You are not temporary. And this is what surrender has to offer. It's to step into a place that is the eternal truth of who you are. There's a verse in A Course in Miracles that said, let me see, I know the context of it, see if I can get the words right. I'm going to paraphrase it because I don't remember the exact words. It says, the truth of who you are can never be diminished. An idea of who you are can be diminished. The truth of who you are can never be attacked. It can never be diminished. It can never get sick. But your small self, that idea of who you think you are, can have all those things. I felt attacked yesterday. I felt disrespected. How dare he do that? But it ended up being this really beautiful experience, because after I saw that I did that, of course, my mind's like, okay, caught you, spirit caught you again, caught you in your ego. And that's okay, because it highlighted something that was not flowing with life. And it was actually really nice that I even heard the guy say, okay, that was kind of nice. It was easier for me to let go, because he would have said, if he would have just fought back in some way, I would have probably held on to it longer, right? But it was kind enough to hear okay. And I was thinking, I'm really glad that he said okay, and I feel really grateful, and I'm just going to send this guy love and blessings. So I switched around, and when we come back to the moment and we stop fighting life and we just surrender into it, you find that everything manifests quicker. Everything happens quicker because there's no struggle or fight. Because God's given you exactly what you need, even though your mind might say, no. God's not giving me what I need. I didn't want this suicide to happen. I didn't want my heart issues to happen. I didn't want this to happen. My mind will say all those things, but when you come back to the moment and you surrender into it, you say, that's exactly what was needed. God's given me exactly what I need. Can I surrender into this and stop fighting it in any way? How's everybody doing? I get on my little soapbox there, get going, and then so I just want to come back to the moment for myself. I feel that if you did nothing else but just kept giving over every problem you have, every challenge you had, just kept giving it over to God, just surrendering it to God, it would be enough. In fact, it would be enough right now in this moment to discover who you really are. Because who you really are, love, peace, joy, one with God, it's here right now. You don't have to climb, good news, you don't have to climb a mountaintop. You don't have to go to India. You don't have to find a guru. You can. You don't have to move one single inch. Why? Because even saying I'm getting closer to God insinuates that you're not already one with God. There's nowhere to go. You are that. But your mind has convinced you you're not, and that's okay. That's just part of the game of life. There's nothing wrong with that. But the more you can just say, all right, you know what? I don't want to struggle anymore, Father. I don't want to struggle. I really want to just give everything over to you, everything. And to the depth that you're willing to give everything over to God will be to the depth that you experience peace and the truth of who you are. Namaste.